So, hey everybody, it's Ash Brown from Empiraa. So I'm the founder and CEO of Empiraa, and every Wednesday we have the Cut the Fluff series, and today we have Ian Markram from Loading Growth. Ian, tell us about yourself and Loading Growth.
Thanks, Ash. I appreciate the intro. Look, I'm a coach, a business coach around IT services, consultancy firms, basically. I've been coaching for over 9 years and had about 115 to 120 clients that I've coached in that period of time. My target areas are basically the US, UK, and Australia are the 3 regions I work in. So sometimes a bit difficult with the time zones. And my goal is to take founders of those businesses from an A to B in their journey and have fun and make sure that they prosper through that process. So that's what I basically do at a high level. And I've got a whole team of people around supporting me doing the things that need to get done to help those companies succeed. And one of those products that I have and use is your product. It's a great product. And I just want to say that all our clients use it, and those that don't use it are slowly moving on to using the strategy frameworks and platforms that we have in that solution. So I just want to say awesome on that, Ash. Keep up the work. Great product. Thanks.
No, thanks, Ian. It's always nice to get good feedback. You never hear the good stuff. You only hear the bad stuff. So it's actually nice to hear the good stuff for once.
Yeah.
So I just want to touch a little bit on yourself. Like, obviously, we'll go into the predictable revenue and how to avoid downturns and create fat pipelines and that. What was the draw to get into coaching, and especially coaching consultants, because you're coaching the coaches effectively?
Yeah. So it's pretty hard. It's a long journey. I actually was a management consultant in my previous life at Deloitte and a few other consultancy firms around the world. When I came to Australia, I basically decided that, we could do things better. And I started my own consultancy firm, and we sold that in 2012 to Entity Data, a big 30 global size company. And with that, we basically thought about what am I going to do next? I've got some funds available, so I did some investment outside of technology firms, basically, and enjoyed doing that to a certain degree. But I was drawn back into the complexity and the challenges that IT services firms had, and I knew how to solve those because I've been doing that for 25 years prior to the exit. And I got stuck into it, as most people do, by mistake. I was dragged in by a client, and they asked me to become a non-exec on their board and work out the strategy. And finally, over a period of time, I got a bit restless, and I said to them, look, it's nice to be in the ship and navigating the ship at a high level, but the day-to-day activity is where I love it, and I love the power of change and positive impact into people's lives. So I then became a coach, and that was the journey I started 9 years ago. So it's been a long period of time.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's I love hearing one of the real through lines through this webinar series is speaking to people that actually got a passion about solving problems. And a lot of people say, I like to solve problems, and then it's like, okay, cool. But when the going gets tough, they go, it's like, do you find you embrace the chaos a little bit and the complexities?
For sure, without a doubt, because you've got to have a purpose in life, Ash. If you don't wake up in the morning with the purpose, I personally didn't have a purpose for nearly 3 to 6 months after I sold my consultancy firm. It's a thing that people do when they do exit. They actually have a bit of a lag of what is their purpose and what do they need to do in life. So my purpose is to make sure I take those people on that journey and enjoy that journey with them as well. So it's not just I'm coaching them, I'm part of that journey. I integrated into their organization to a certain degree, and I enjoy that. And it's fun to see people achieve their goals and live through them as well. It's a bit of fun. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I probably want to keep that line of thought going, because obviously we'll touch on the fat pipelines and that. Give us like one of your greatest achievements with what you've done with Loading Growth, like how you've been able to sort of help an IT services business go from being what they, typical IT service business, we're doing okay, but to actually becoming a beast. Yeah, I'd love to hear
sure.
just a bit of a story there.
Look, most IT services firms start off with disgruntled employees at a big consultancy firm, and they believe they can go and do it better. And that's the sort of the attitude that happens. And they leave and they'll start. And then after they get to about 10 people, they realize they've got to actually make sure they have a system employee, a process, and make sure it's a proper company as such and not a contracting company. And they've got to formalize that and that process there. So that is one stage. And then from 10 to 30 is the next growth stage. So there's different challenges at those different stages within those organizations. But I've become so good at spotting those challenges and I've been doing it for so long that I can actually just jump into something for an hour or so in a workshop, and I can actually come up with some really good directional change or what needs to happen, or bring people back to some reality of where things are in life, and so that's the gift that I actually have. And it's not because I'm smarter than anyone in the room. It's because I do this every day. I look at 30 CRMs on average in a week, and that gives me the power to see what's actually happening and what's working in the market and actually what's not working in the market. So that's the value add that I bring, but it's so good when I can do that so quickly as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So going back onto the last topic is a question. Part of the question, Ash, was around, what has been success? Well, taking companies that have gone from, maybe a 5 mil to a 25 mil turnover as well in the services world. That's quite difficult. When I engage with founders, they normally are tired and exhausted, Ash.
Yep.
So the question is, I always ask, there's two types of exits a founder has. One of those exits is basically they will become a management team player. So they'll sit on the board, they'll get someone to run the company, or at some stage, they'll want to realize their asset and sell that business and make sure they get the money back out the business, basically. So those are the two things. But on average, most of my clients will do a 20 to 30% year-on-year growth. And I don't want them to grow any faster than that, because it actually breaks the wheels in a services environment. So yeah, I've got a lot of amazing stories of people. Yeah.
And so if I'm like a consultant, an IT service consultant, business consultant, probably the biggest challenge a lot of them have, and I imagine this is where you come in and help, is that striking that balance between how do we service our current client base, but also how do we do BD work and create that predictable revenue. Because that's honestly predictable revenue is that we speak to consultants every day and advisors, even any professional services, to be honest. Correct. And they all say, oh, we wish we had predictable revenue, like it's very lumpy. So how do really good consulting or professional services businesses manage that? Because that's a really difficult thing to manage.
Yeah. Look, as I said, when people start their consulting business and they're about 10 people, they are really hands-on. They're the thought leaders in that space. So they're really, really, that niche, they demand a lot of respect from people around them. And they can get a lot of work through referrals up to about 10 people. Then after that, when you go from 10 to 30, you actually have to reinvest in your sales playbooks and processes and systems to actually make sure that you get that repeatable process over a period of time. So it is quite tricky. Most of those founders are thought leaders, so they aren't salespeople as such. Okay, They are the type of people that can actually understand that issue, solve the issue on the fly in front of a client, and actually impress a client. And the client goes, you know what, I want that guy on my site because he's going to solve my problems, and they trust that person. The challenge is when you go from 10 to 30, you actually have to build a team around that, and you have to have other people that can do that sort of that trust building up front. So it becomes a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
How do you have those conversations? Like, because I know the hardest thing as a founder to do is to let go, because no one thinks that. A lot of founders are, and for right or wrong, are arrogant in a way that, this business, because they started the business out of their spare bedroom, whatever else, right? And they get to a point, it's like, oh, how do I let go of this without? Because I'm the best person to do it.
That's where your tool's quite powerful, because what actually happens is I always sit back with someone and say to them, where do you really want to go? And it might take me 3 to 4 weeks with various meetings with them to actually realize where they want to go over the next 2 to 5 years as a business.
Yep.
And once you've got that, you actually have to put some stakes in the ground, some anchors. So you go back to that anchor every time to say, hey, look, we had that discussion. You wanted to do this and this in your business. You want to spend more time with your family. You wanted to make sure that you could pay for private school for your kids. You want to make sure that you could do this with your staff members, all the exciting things you want to do. But at the end of the day, you've got to make sure they've got those anchors so you can bring people back to the anchor. And it's sort of like a electricity with a pencil in it. You can actually drag someone to so far, and then they want to come back to the natural place. So what you've got to do is move that anchor. So when they come back, naturally, they're not at the starting point as such. Okay. And that's why you've got to have those high-level discussions with people. Even if you're a 5-man consultancy firm or a 10-man consultancy firm, you've got to know where to go and what is the right next thing in that roadmap. And that's the part of the genius I bring, is to help consultancy firms work out what's the right next thing, the R&T in their roadmap of how to go from A to B. Okay. And don't get overwhelmed going through that process. So just put it this way. I remember when I was a consultant back in Europe, I used to fly regularly every week to Germany from the UK. And one day there was this beautiful sign as I was walking into the airplane, and that was the Garmin that came out, the first Garmin ever.
Yeah.
And it basically said a tagline: if you want to stop arguments with your better half, get one of these. And I looked at this thing and I said, I'm buying this thing within a day. And basically it was the first version of a GPS. And we bought it, and I had a lot less arguments. And the only arguments I ever had with my girlfriend at the time, which is my wife, was around directions in a foreign city. And that GPS actually, anchored our discussion around where we want to go. And that's the same thing with your software. If you bring right back to those anchor points, you've got to have those discussions. You've got to map them out, and you've got to record them. And then you've got to go back to those anchor points. And so to me, it's all about being realistic, having discussions around anchor points, and then capturing those anchor points, and then working with the clients to make sure you get them from A to B. That's the journey.
You brought up a point there about being realistic, and I think one of the biggest issues a lot of the time, where as business owners, we either are doomsday preppers or we live in the sky. It's very rarely to find a founder or an owner of a business that actually turns around and lives in somewhat reality. So how do you have those really tough conversations as a coach to these guys and say, hey, look, what you want is great, but it's just a bit ridiculous.
It's everyone wants to do something that's different, and I take that because we as people, we are unique, and that's what makes us really interesting, and that's what I also love working with people. But I think at the end of the day is you've got to educate people through a process to make sure that they come up with their own way or own vision of what they want for the organization. And it's sometimes quite frustrating because I know where they should be going. And I know that because I'm, coaching on average 30 clients a week in IT services. So I can see where the gaps are in the market, actually, within different technology. It could be a Microsoft, Oracle, or SAP. I understand the opportunities within those sub niches. But really, it's come up with a process to get them from A to B and map out their vision. Should they feel like they own that? Rather than as a coach going in and telling them this is what you should do. So a lot of people, when you're coaching, one of the biggest takeaways from coaching that I've learned over the years is you got to be very mindful to get the person to come up with their vision so that they believe in it, but it's the right vision as well. So it can't be a vision where it's unrealistic. Okay. So it's a bit of a tough thing. It's, it's sort of that give and take, but you've got to make sure that's right. Otherwise, you, as a coach, you end up on the losing side every day of the week. Okay.
Yeah. It's you've got to let people own their own destiny. And there's nothing wrong with ambition. Shit, I'm ambitious. I've got some pretty lofty goals, but then you've got to have You got to be able to look around the corner, be able to still look where your feet are.
100%. 100%.
Now, fat pipelines. You bring up every time we have a chat. You bring up fat pipelines, and I thought, you know what, Ian would be great to speak to the group as a whole on our channels about what the hell is a fat pipeline and why is it so damn important.
All right. So really good point. And the reason why I'll just call it fat pipeline is because no one wants a skinny pipeline. And over the years, when I've been coaching people, I have various different terms of what the status of that pipeline should really be to make sure that they can make the decision. So the biggest challenge with consulting is sales. Most of our clients know how to deliver. They were delivery guys when they started, and girls when they started the organization. The challenge after that is, though, how to actually make sure that they can actually have a sales process that actually helps them, take the pressure off of delivery and sales and actually run their business as they should. So delivery is very difficult in services world. Okay. Very, very challenging. And then on top of that, you've got sales, and they're always caught between the two and they don't know what to do. So they either got people that's, billable, or they don't have people on the bench, and they lose that money as that person goes by each day. So that's the back of their mind of how to make sure they get sales. So the way I look at people and have a discussion, honest discussion, is I look at their pipeline, and I can see within probably, half an hour going through their pipeline and through the deals where they're at as a maturity of a business, just by looking at the pipeline. Okay. Because the more mature of the business they'll have, the more that pipeline is a real pipeline and don't have, hopeful things in there. And more importantly, they'll be in control of their own destiny. And that is really important. So if you're any services-based organization, the only way you can control your destiny is having a fat pipeline. Okay. And I'm going to sort of explain to you a bit more about that. But a lot of people, what they do is unnaturally, they will actually squeeze that pipeline. So if I, have to quickly draw something for you, just to quickly show you what I mean by that. And it's really self-explanatory when I do that. But the challenge is people want to have deals all the time. But what they don't want to do is do all the work around that. So hang on for a second. Let me just do something here. And I'll just put a page in here, and hopefully you can see that. So if you think about this, this is really a pipeline. When I go and see a company, and once we spend, probably an hour or two going through the pipeline, they had a full pipeline, and then they realize that we throw stuff out. Okay? Because it's not really realistic. And before, they look at this pipeline and it's very skinny. And over the next 3, 6, 12 months, it's basically very, very light, and their revenue is not there. And then they worry about the staff. Okay. So we do not want to be in a situation. We do not want to be in the situation, because that's the pressure that actually ends up. That's the pressure that actually ends up putting pressure on you as the owner, but also on the people around the business. And that pressure, everyone can feel the pressure. Everyone can see that, feel it tense. And therefore people will end up leaving. There'll be a whole lot of reasons that tend to be, not around having an awesome pipeline. Okay. So if you go back into the pipeline world, what we've got to do as owners of the business is we've got to really make sure we've got things that are always going in to the marketing funnel. Okay. And that's really important. And some of these things are natural, and some of them will take a bit of time to get there. Okay. Really bad drawing. Sorry, Ash, but you sort of get the gist.
No. It's Picasso.
And what you want to do is then push that into your CRM pipeline. What everyone does is they have the marketing and sales all wrapped up into one, and it doesn't give them a true reflection of that. So you should separate those pipelines in your CRM, and you should have the marketing qualified leads, MQLs, and then you should have the handover to SQLs at this point in time. So, everyone wants this, but they don't want to do the work to get there. All right. And that is the difference between a successful business and a non-successful business, unfortunately, because you can only rely on referrals, and you can only rely on things, for a certain time, word of mouth, for a certain period of time, and then you actually dry up those referrals and those discussions. So at some point, if you don't have a repeatable process to bring in leads, then you're going to battle through that. Okay. So the fat pipeline for me is when I sit down with a client is, what do you want? Do you want a skinny pipeline? Because what actually happens is in a skinny pipeline, you start to push things down. You get erratic and you want that deal. You want the money to pop in, but the client that you're selling to, Ash, feels the pressure as well. Because it's going this way. The pressure is going this way. You're trying to push things down unnaturally. And what I mean by unnatural, if you're trying to do things unnatural in sales, good chance that you're going to lose it every day of the week. It's got to be a natural process. It's got to come across that you're the thought leaders, you're really busy, you know what you're doing, and you're in total control of your own pipe. And that reflects to not only your staff, but reflects to the people you're selling to, believe it or not, because they know that you're scared and you're getting nervous that things aren't working or the economy is bad or whatever else. And all these thoughts come in and they can feel it, and they can feel the pressure that the salesperson or the owner is putting on them to make a deal. And that's the worst thing that really can happen. Okay.
Yeah. I see it a lot, even in software sales, like, you'll sign up to some apps and that sort of stuff, and you get bombarded. I had one recently, I'm not going to say which company it was, but it was just like text message, email, WhatsApp, a LinkedIn. It was just like, holy, like, come on. This is, there's been, how do you strike that balance then of, balance is the word of the day by the sounds of it, but how do you strike that balance between being aggressive, not aggressive, but chasing sales, but not being sort of, I what's your firstborn, which happens sometimes.
Yeah. So look, that's a really good question. I'm going to put this onto a slide that I've got up here for you guys. And this to me is a process you can build up over a period of time. So, and this is for any type of services business, legal, accounting, IT services, consultancy, it doesn't really matter. It's the same process. What you need to have is multiple points, touch points. It could be, and these things, you don't do all these things. These things could be things that you want to do or you're good at naturally to do, okay, as a founder or as a leadership team in a small business. You pick up a couple of these things and you double down on them. I've got clients that, for example, that just do the mastermind dinners, okay? One thing. And they do it really, really well. Mastermind dinners, and you could do podcasts, you could do webinars. There's one or two things you can become really good at in your lead gen process. You don't need to have to be good at everything here, because what actually happens is it's just too much if you're a small consultancy firm and all these things. So you just got to build out a series of campaigns, offers, and actually make sure that you slowly fill in your pipeline naturally through this process, that people will actually start to be part of your world. Okay. So if you look at this here is your world. All right. As a company, that's it there. What you're doing is inviting people over to your house, and you're going to get them familiar with you, and they're going to love you after a period of time. So I'll give you a story. When I was running my consultancy firm, I would fly regularly to 4 states in Australia. I would bump into people that were senior people at client sides that had seen me on the stage talking about IT services. Okay. And they would come up to me as if they knew me, and they would say, "Oh, you know what? I've been trying to get hold of you, Ian. You spoke 2 weeks ago at that tech event." And I went, "Oh, that's awesome." And they would talk to me as if they knew me, and really I didn't know who the hell they were. Okay. Sometimes I thought they were my staff, because we had a few staff. So I just didn't know who they were. But the thing at the end of the day is I've invited people over into my house as my potential clients. They get to know me as a person. They get to know our thought leadership, our process where we go to market and help with people with solutions to solve problems, because people don't want to have solutions. They want to have a problem that you're going to solve for them. All right. So you might have software like you have, and that's solving a problem is really important. It's not a solution. It's a problem that you're solving is the way you go to market. Okay. And that's really with services, really, really powerful. So all I'm going to say is back onto this. It's your world. You've got to invite people to your world. And the more people you get in there, Ash, the less squeezing and the less unnatural things you have to do to get a deal to happen. All right.
And the more comfortable you are too.
That's right. That's right. And you know, the best thing to have is to say to a client, I'm busy, take a ticket and I'll be ready in 3 months. I'll sign a statement of work with you now, but we only started in 3 months. The client FOMO kicks in like you cannot believe it. You know, clients, you can put your price up by 10 to 15%. You know what I mean? If you've got a lot of work. These are the things that you want to have. The problems you want to have running a consultancy firm is having too much work. All right.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. Okay. So you've got to invest in the structure to build a mechanism to bring a fat pipeline. Okay. Simple as that.
Yeah. And probably one of the things is like a lot of the times the consultants and that, and I see this talking to them, they get stuck. One I spoke to recently, they're like, oh, we're now moving into X. And it's like, but you're an expert in that. So understanding your ICP is very important. You're understanding what you actually need to do. I mean, that's a really important part.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, a lot of people don't even know. In our world, it's if you're mid-enterprise, going to mid-enterprise or large enterprise, you're trying to sell services into those, even small enterprise, there's always a decision maker and 3 to 4 influencers. Okay. Yep. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How many touch points do you think it takes a services firm to actually get a deal across the line?
I'm going to say 7 to 10, roughly.
Engagements, like a meeting. What type? How many?
7?
16 is the 16, average.
Jesus.
It's a lot.
So how do you balance that for not being a stalker then?
That's right. So how do you do that? You've got to have, this goes back to this funnel.
Yeah.
You've got to naturally let things fall through. All right. Yep. Only get serious in my world when we're doing brainstorms and strategy sessions. Right.
Yeah.
Everything else is just pushing these people through and nurture. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the 16 things. So you've got to become really good at nurturing. Otherwise, Ash, as you just said there, a lot of my clients go, you know what, Ian, I think I'm stalking them. Well, damn well, you are stalking them. You can only phone them freaking twice in 2 weeks. You can't phone them 5 times in a week. No, that is stalking. So how do you do it? You got to make sure they're reading a newsletter. You send a personalized video to them that's going to solve some problem for them for 5 minutes. You have some unique way to have a discussion with them, and you add that, and your system should monitor, like look at that and score that. And when they're ready, that's when they're ready to pick up the phone in my world and actually have, it's a verified person. And that's when you actually have a brainstorm right there and then.
Yep.
And that's when you verify them. And then you can throw them into your normal CRM funnel. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how you stop the stalking, basically.
Stop the, here's a hashtag for you, stop the stalking. No, because that's probably the one thing we've like IT services, consulting, strategy, execution, advisory, and that type of stuff. They're naturally not sales focused. Like that, so they're not sales. They are sales focused because they realize the importance of sales. But then, how do I have a person that might be very, very good at IT services, let's just say, and they're unbelievable at doing MSP work and all that, but then they've got to go, well, actually now I've got to do 16 points. Like that's almost like you're asking them to do something that's so unnatural. So is there automations? Is there tools out there? Is there different things that can actually help them sort of ease that burden? Because the mental aspect's the hardest part.
For sure. It's like anything first. You're right, Ash, is where to get started. That's where people ask. You know, I was on a call earlier on this morning, prime example around this. They were asking where to get started in their journey. And the thing is really to understand how much you want to spend on marketing and to understand there is a cost to it. So here, I'll just quickly pull up another quick slide. Hopefully I can find it. Oh, here we go. That's the average stats on a services firm, on how much you spend on revenue, percentage of revenue, to actually build the marketing machine around you over a period of time to make sure it's successful. So you've got to have a budget. You've got to really think about marketing as separate to the whole thing. Here's another stat for you. Companies lose up to 25% of their revenue each year due to inefficient sales processes.
Yeah.
That's scary. So you've done all the hard work, but you haven't done the follow through to 16 times. You might have stopped at 4 or 5. And that's where a lot of people actually end up. So, it's all these type of stats that you can actually basically read, and they're all from sort of, Aberdeen Group and everything else. They're all out there. Is B2B companies with tight aligned sales and marketing operations achieve a 24% faster revenue growth and a 27% faster profit growth. And honestly, when I'm talking about small businesses, it's like I can see companies that are doing a 20 to 30% year-on-year growth, right?
Yep.
Very profitable are the ones that know what they're doing. The ones that don't know what they're doing, it's up and down, it's stress, it's chaos. Okay. And I can see that within, as I said, an hour of going through a CRM pipeline for the first time and look at the financials and then like that. It just takes me, an hour to go through that. And I can see straight away where the things are because I've been doing it for over 9 years. So that is the challenge, around that. So going back to your question, you've got to really work out the spend of how much you're going to be spending. You then got to get someone that understands your industry. So people come to me all the time because I'm an IT services person. I hand them over to our sister company who does the marketing for them because it's one of the bad, things out of 9 that we focus on growing companies. And they will take that company and they will go through a campaign process to help them set up the strategy and the multiple campaigns underneath that to execute. But for a person that wants to go out and, just try and do things themselves, that's fantastic. But everyone's tried to do that and they failed over a period of time because they get drawn back into the delivery focus. And they will try something, for 5 minutes and they won't carry on for more than 30 days on something. And I'll give you a prime example. When I got on the call with you this morning and I said something about something and you said, you just launched something in the US and you said, this is the spend, this is the time we expect it to be working, and this is the results. That shows you've really got a good understanding of what you expect from that, where majority of people don't and don't give it enough time. Okay.
And that's important. Like it's important to understand if you are going to spend the time and like you're going to spend the money. Okay, the money is whatever. That's fine, right?
Yeah.
Because people spend money on all sorts of stuff all the time to justify it as a business cost. But it's about what are you spending? Why are you spending it? And what's the time to measure to go? Okay, we're actually starting to see results. The thing that we're talking about, I don't expect to see like unbelievable results, but I expect to see some green shoots coming out of the ground. And because when you go back to the realistic aspect, you don't sit there. And this is where I think what happens a lot of the time, we're in this instant gratification world where everyone wants that. You swipe right, you're on a date type of stuff. Like you've got to invest the time into these processes, but then iterate where you need to iterate. Have you noticed that patience sometimes is probably the greatest enemy of these?
I tell you what, Ash, people phone me when they got a problem. They don't phone a coach if they're going gangbusters. There's not many, like 75% of my clients, they phone me and say, Ian, we need to catch up. We don't know you, but we've been referred or we've seen you and whatever. We've done some investigation. You're the guy who we need to speak to. I go, fantastic. I really appreciate that. It's an inbound opportunity. But the first thing I do is when I put that phone down, I go, holy crap, what shit are these guys in? But we'll find out first meeting. You know what I mean? Because that's what the reality is. So unfortunately, people are reactive to everything. Okay. If things are working okay, they will never look for outside help or to look at marketing to actually leverage their business. But if things are going wrong, then they'll want to be desperate and then they phone people up or they reach out and say, let's do some marketing activity out quickly. Let's do something on LinkedIn. Let's do a couple of webinars. Let's do some email marketing, whatever they are. But, that takes 3 to 9 months to get a return on that stuff. Okay. And unfortunately, it's time and effort and money to get that done. So the instant gratification definitely doesn't work. And people want a result straight away because they're desperate. And unfortunately, that's the wrong time. You know what I mean? And I'll go to them and say, look, geez, if you came back to me, if you came 6 months ago, we would be in a different situation. I promise you.
Yep.
And I often say to companies I work with, Ash, I'll put money into this business, but I want an upside, because I know if we get these things working, we will get a return on it. And I'll take the money at return if you don't believe what we can do. You know what I mean? And then I get to start to think a bit differently. So I'm investing my time into some companies. Some of them do pay me in different ways. And, you know, the thing at the end of the day is I'm confident that if you do, we have a process we take you through, and that's awesome. But someone starting that process by themselves, it's very, very difficult, you know, very difficult to get, because it's so integrated at the moment. Okay. Yeah.
And probably another point, and because we'll wrap up in just 5 minutes, but one of the points I want to bring up, and this is something I've seen, not just in the consulting industry, but just in industries altogether, they think the answer is that I'm going to put how many times have you heard this one? I'm going to put a gun sales rep on.
For sure.
And they think that's the answer. Explain why that's one of the most stupidest comments you could ever make without a good sales and marketing infrastructure machine behind it.
I'm going to tell you, Ash, I hear that all the time. So a good salesperson comes in, and I sometimes know the salespeople that actually they've hired, because it's a small industry. Okay. And I go, you know, that out of 10, that person's a 7 out of 10. Oh, but they performed like 3 out of 10. I said, was it them or was it you? Okay. And then they go, oh, no, it's them. I said, okay, did he ask you things like, did you have sales plays? Did you have an offer to go to market that was ready? Did you have a value proposition? Did you understand the messaging that needs to cut through the whole of the market? These, you know, just 5 things are rattled in 2 seconds. These are the things that you've got to be prepared for. So when a salesperson does arrive, he's not sitting there trying to create assets himself from scratch and spin wheels. So, and costing you a lot of money. The salesperson in most organizations will be more expensive, okay, believe it or not, than the CEO of the company. And some founders will get paid a lot of money, but if the salesperson is the best person in the market, in that industry, in that niche, they'll probably get paid more than the founder. And that's another twist around it, because they think that's unrealistic. But at the end of the day, if they bring in, 5 to 6 mil revenue, you'll give them anything that they want, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's be honest. Okay. But it's to get that level of trust and to get there. So all I'm going to say is, Ash, I hear that all the time. Make sure you've got a plan before the salesperson actually comes on board.
Yeah. The one thing I always used to use was, would you put Michael Schumacher in a Datsun and expect him to win the F1 Grand Prix?
100%.
And people go, well, no. Then why would you put the best driver in the worst car? Have the best car and the best driver, and you'll win championships.
For sure. And sometimes you might even have the second or third best driver in the best car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just build that infrastructure. So before we shoot off, Ian, one thing I want to ask you, what's your top 3 tips? So if I'm going to build out, you've given us all there, but what's your top 3 tips to build out the best pipelines and to avoid downturns?
I think that the best thing is understand your market. People think they understand the market. I hear this all the time. I was on a call recently with a client, and they said, no, he's a leadership team of 10 people. We understand our market, Ian. And then I asked them 5 or 6 questions, and they went, okay, we don't understand our market that well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the thing, is I think people think they know their market because they've been in it for 20 years. But really go next level, really hammer down on what the market really is. Okay? Understand that firstly, really important. So their influencers, decision makers, those are the people that you need to do. So I think that's really important, is if you're going to target something, make sure you know what to target. And then the next thing straight after that is the offer or the message or the clarity around that meeting that actual target, right? So you've got to make sure that they get both those things joining together. And then behind that, you've got to have something that's a quick accelerator to the market. And this is the 3 high-level things. There's a lot of things in between this, obviously. But the third thing is really having an accelerator. So you get some initiative or some excitement at a client, all right, to bite the cherry, and then you go in quickly and you deliver something that's amazing. Right? And it might be a 10K or 150K, small piece, depends how big the clients are. And you deliver something that's worth 3 times the value that they think they're getting. And then they'll open the door to all the problems. They'll give you the bolt, the keys to the bank vault. And you will go in there and you go, that's my cash coming to me in 6 months' time. That's mine in a year's time. Okay. And that's the only way you can do that is if you understand there is the people who are buying from you really, really well. You understand their problem and you've got a solution to solve or a process to solve that problem very, very quickly. Those are the 3 things you could take away, Ash.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I wanted to get you on. You were one of the first guests. So I was like, I've got to get Ian on because I knew it would be enlightening for the consulting and advisory industry. No doubt about it. So I went, you know what, I've got to get Ian on, and you haven't disappointed as per usual. So, Ian, where can people find you? Where can people find you in Loading Growth?
Just go to loadinggrowth.com, to be honest. And I've got sort of 2 tiers for coaching. The one's on a wait list, so you can sign up to join that wait list one. But I only do that, and those are the larger clients. And then there's a group coaching for smaller clients and large clients that is very price effective because I'm very passionate about helping people out in the industry. And that's about $100 US a month just to join the low one, just to get in there, get access to the content and get some excitement of, what you can do really with your business and get to be part of a community, basically. So those are the 2 sort of entry points that I'm normally talk to people. Thanks, Ash.
Yeah. And we deal with a lot of Ian's Loading Growth customers because they use Empiraa and amazing businesses that are growing at a rapid rate. So you put your money where your mouth is. So I think that's one. I think that's one of the most important things here. With us, find Empiraa, empiraa.com, or find me on LinkedIn, or find the business on LinkedIn. Reach out if you're a consultant and you're looking to get real-time visibility across your strategic initiatives with your clients. Feel free to reach out. Trust me, we've got some amazing product updates coming in the next few weeks. So thanks again, Ian. This is an amazing chat, and I'm looking forward to next week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ash. Keep up the product. I love it. Thanks a lot.